So here I catch Rich in a pretty facetious lie, I believe, when you claim that you have experience that you don't have, or you claim that you've done something that you don't have. So I want to check this myself.
Fingerprint. This is how I got acclimated with fingerprints so well. In the Texas School Book Depository, they found a 13, almost 14-point match fingerprint.
Now you're saying they found. You said you got. Let me go back just a little bit more. I want to be sure that I'm doing this right.
When I was very young, and I still work on the case, actually. I've worked with some of the biggest and the best investigators on the case. I know Robert Groden very well.
Robert Groden is more of a writer. He's been following that case and debunking it forever. He's the one that came on 1975, I believe, on the Geraldo show when they first released the Zapruder footage.
If you're at all queasy, then don't watch this film. Just put on the late night movie.
I feel it's important that people know the truth.
Very heavy.
John Kennedy was our president. He died for what he believed in. And I felt that we had no right to turn our back on his memory.
Bob and Dick, would you please narrate what we're seeing as we...
Getting a copy of the famous home movie of the Kennedy assassination would change Robert Groden's life.
Zapruder was a Dallas dress manufacturer.
When he revealed the Zapruder film on Goodnight America, it led to a job as the chief photo optics consultant for the House Select Committee on Assassinations, created in part as a response to the release of the film.
They, in their final report, said that it was, in fact, organized crime, that there was, in fact, a conspiracy.
When the 6th floor museum opened in Dealey Plaza, Robert was surprised they wouldn't talk about any of the other theories.
They just didn't want the truth out there, and that upset me. It upset me terribly. So I moved down here and started to set up in Dealey Plaza on weekends to let people know that there was an alternative to the official fiction. And the city...
5 years in Dealey Plaza, Robert has been arrested twice and has been ticketed by the city 82 times.
I won every case, all of those cases, because I hadn't broken any laws. The stuff that they charged me with were incredible things. Vending on private property, selling private property, vending on public property, selling personal property, blocking sidewalks even though we weren't on the sidewalk, vending without a permit even though permits don't exist. They just don't exist. There aren't any. There's no need for them. You couldn't buy one if you had $1 billion.
You know, there's the whole idea of arresting somebody in the United States of America for selling a magazine. That's what he was arrested for, selling a magazine.
One time, the city sent in Homeland Security, complete with the outfits and machine guns, the whole bit. It really got ridiculous. I mean, I'm not a danger to anybody.
The original charges were based on one ordinance that didn't apply, and when that was pointed out to the municipal court, they amended the charges against him to cite a different ordinance, which also didn't apply.
They just didn't want me there. They wanted me gone. And they felt that arresting me would scare me off.
For 20 years, Robert has been placing the iconic X on the exact spot where Kennedy was shot.
The city came by and they dug up that entire section of street to get rid of the X. Can you believe it? When we asked why, they said we don't want anyone tripping over the X. Like maybe 1/4 millimeter thick. It's crazy. All of this for just speaking my mind on a nationally important issue.
You know Robert Groden? See, I didn't know that. Robert Groden's been around for a long time.
Tom Rosley, many others.
Tom Rosley, you know these years that we've known each other, I would say stuff about the Kennedy case, and you would never respond. You never... I even made a video and sent it to you, and you would just, like, never respond. I think I figured out why. Let's see. Listen to what he says, folks.
But we worked on
We worked
a fingerprint. This
a fingerprint. We worked on a fingerprint.
is how I got acclimated with fingerprints so well.
Now, Grodin had nothing to do with the fingerprints. He had nothing to do with that.
In the Texas School Book Depository, they found a 13, almost 14 point.
He said, we worked, they found. It was a 14-point print in the sniper's nest.
Match fingerprint. And that's a slam dunk. You can match it to somebody. And we were
All right, let's see.
able to match that to a man by the name of Malcolm Wallace, which was actually kind of one of Lyndon Johnson's studs, so to speak.
Malcolm Wallace was actually a boyfriend of Lyndon Baines Johnson's sister.
But anyway,
Let's see. That's what he says, so I'm not going to go into what I did on this live, but I'm going to go. A Texas-based assassin research group has identified a man believed to have left a previously unidentified fingerprint on a box making up the alleged sniper's nest on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, from which President Kennedy was allegedly assassinated in 1963. Researcher Walt Brown, speaking on behalf of the Texas group, so that he didn't mention any of these names, said that if at a May 29 press conference in Dallas that the fingerprints belonged to Malcolm E. Mac Wallace, a convicted killer with ties to Lyndon Baines Johnston, showing a 14-point match between Wallace's fingerprint card obtained from the Texas Department of Public Safety. And the previously unidentified print, a copy of which was kept in the National Archives. The match was made by A. Nathan Darby, an expert with certification by the International Association of Identifiers. Here's the print. Well, you can see the match. Okay. According to members of the research group, this new evidence has been in the hands of Dallas Police Department since May the 12th. The DPD passed it on to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The fact of Wallace's fingerprint in the so-called sniper's nest does not, of course, mean he pulled the trigger that day. Brown cited FBI fingerprint experts' testimony to the Warren Commission. Okay, so it was brought up to the Warren Commission too. But Rich said we matched it, in which Latona stated that fingerprints can only be taken from the surface like cardboard within 24 hours of its origin. Furthermore, Wallace's print at the crime scene is hard evidence that collaborates with the circumstantial evidence of Loy Factor's eyewitness account of Wallace's presence, said Texas researcher Richard Bartholomew. Loy Factor has claimed that he, Wallace, Lee, Oswald, and a woman identified as Ruth Ann were present on the TSB 6th floor as a part of the assassination team. According to Bartholomew, the same question was raised by the Dallas police on May 12th. The FBI's own textbook fingerprint on science teaches that the basic concept of fingerprint as evidence is used in criminal investigation. He said, those who have an innocent reason to have handled the objects in the question are eliminated from suspicion. Did Wallace have a reason? No. Okay, so let's take a look at, let's find out who this guy is. Let's find it out. A. Nathan Darby. a little bit more about Walt Brown and that fingerprint. Back on November 2004, the guilty men. Not only was Malcolm Wallace in the Texas School Book Depository 6th floor sniper's nest, his fingerprint expert that found the print was Nathan Darby, not Rich Prater. Evidence Mr. Darby used. This is his summary. Recently, I received a photocopy of an inked print along with a photocopy of a latent print from Texas researcher. After careful and extended examination of the inked print and photocopy, latent print photocopy, I have their identifying characteristics marked and numbered. So if you learned a lot about fingerprints, you would probably know that it's not a good idea to take a photocopy and a photocopy and determine the prints. That I got there. So let's take a look.
Welcome to Chapter 20 of The Men on the 6th Floor, the Mac Wallace fingerprints. Now, this is such an important chapter. It's full of action. I hope you enjoy it. I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed researching and writing about it too. It was quite an experience. Now, at the end of this video, I'm going to put a link to another video where I interview Nathan Darby, the fingerprint expert. We had a nice 30-minute conversation. It's all recorded 20 years ago almost, yeah. And so stick around for that. You'll enjoy that. That's after the chapter 20 is finished. Now, Nathan Darby, of course, was a professional fingerprint expert that linked Malcolm Wallace to the 6th floor of the School Book Depository. And it's a very controversial fingerprint. Some people believe that it's definitely original and authentic. Others have doubts, but see what you think. There's going to be photographs of the fingerprints if you'd like to look at them and try to be a fingerprint expert yourself. But we hope you enjoy the chapter, and then we hope you enjoy the interview. So interesting with this wonderful man who passed away a few years ago. Enjoy.
Chapter 20, The Mac Wallace Fingerprint. It was little more than a smudge. For that reason, this particular fingerprint was determined to be unidentified, or perhaps unidentifiable, and was filed away in the National Archives for over 35 years, along with hundreds of other Warren Commission exhibits, until its appearance and identity was clarified in 1998. The print in question was found on Box A, the designation given to the box of books that supposedly served as a rifle rest for Lee Harvey Oswald. But this particular print, Box A, print number 29, was not that of Oswald. Neither did it match the employees of the book depository or any of the police, FBI, or Secret Service agents who swarmed over the building within minutes of the assassination. How this fingerprint was discovered, analyzed, and eventually matched with a 1951 fingerprint card of Malcolm Wallace is an interesting story, and the impelling force behind this matchup was, of all people, an ex-Dallas cop. The fingerprints that covered the boxes piled strategically in the sniper's nest became the study for a man who made the Kennedy assassination his life's work. To say he was a researcher is a statement that is less than complete. Jay Harrison was, on November 22, 1963, a Dallas policeman who within 5 minutes of the shooting of the president was at the scene of the crime. I met Jay online in 1996, sometime after The Men on the Sixth Floor was published. The book, rich in detail about Malcolm Everett Wallace, was the reason why Jay contacted me. He was obsessed with Mac Wallace, and I guess I was too. He wrote, "I believe that you and I have more than one thing in common. Malcolm Everett Wallace, a man of many interests and vocations, and friends," just about his work on the assassination, always working in the shadows, under the radar. No doubt he held the record for the number of years spent investigating the Kennedy murder, and it was evident that he was proud of it. He wrote, "I was a reserve on the Dallas Police Department, assigned to the Criminal Intelligence Section on the day of the assassination. I joined the department in early 1961 and left it in 1968. My Dallas Police Department ID was 858, and my badge was number 125. I was the first reserve officer to receive the Certificate of Merit from the Dallas Police Department, a very prestigious award, as a direct result of my research and undercover work on the left and right wings. I was at the Texas Schoolbook Depository within 5 minutes of the event. I had the Black Muslim Church under surveillance during the motorcade. It was about a half a mile away from the Texas Schoolbook Depository. Subsequently, I was on the guard team for Governor Connally, and on Sunday morning I was in the basement of City Hall, involved in the security for the transfer of Oswald to the County Sheriff's Department. I am identified in the Warren Commission, Volume 12, page 356, line 16. This is the testimony of Sergeant Donald Francis Steele, who I was with all morning long in Dallas Police Headquarters on Sunday morning, and just prior to, that is 5 minutes before the shooting of Oswald by Ruby. I drove the car out of the basement that preceded Lieutenant Rio Sam Pierce, that gave the opportunity for Ruby to enter the driveway entrance when the crowd was split to allow our cars to exit. Ruby was still in the Western Union office at the time I left. I personally have met and talked at length to George de Mohrenschildt, Bertha Cheek, George Lincoln Rockwell, Edwin Taylor, the Paynes, Jack. The initial examination of the prints convinced the fingerprint officers that they needed better prints. Impressed by a young officer named Mike, who specialized in fingerprint analysis in a nearby police department. He invited me to his office to show him what I had. His superior officer was also curious and joined the conversation. Their curiosity and my desire to have these prints compared influenced me to disclose the nature and source of the fingerprints. The Texas researchers, I later learned, had handled this in an entirely different way by keeping the details of the prints secret, thereby allowing their expert to work blind without prejudice. The initial examination of the prints convinced the fingerprint officers that they needed better prints. Going against official policy, they contacted Austin and requested the official fingerprint file of Malcolm Wallace, which they quickly obtained. How disappointed we were to hear the words, "Sorry, no match," come from our experts. Their explanation was that the prints were similar in many matching points. There were too many dissimilar elements. The officers also indicated that their superiors advised them to drop the project and not connect the department to it in any shape or fashion. We were not allowed to have the possession of the requested official print, since it was the property of the department. Our fingerprint investigation came to a sad end. Meanwhile, the Texas group held a press conference on May 29, 1998. John Kellen was the first to report the details. Quote, "A Texas-based assassination research group has identified a man believed to have left a previously unidentified fingerprint on a box making up the alleged sniper's nest on the 6th floor of the Texas Schoolbook Depository, from which President Kennedy was allegedly assassinated in 1963. Researcher Walt Brown, speaking on behalf of the Texas group, said at a May 29th press conference in Dallas that the fingerprints belonged to Malcolm E. Mac Wallace, a convicted killer with ties to Lyndon Baines Johnson. Brown presented data showing a 14-point match between Wallace's fingerprint card obtained from the Texas Department of Public Safety and the previously unidentified print, a copy of which was kept in the National Archives. The match was made by A. Nathan Darby, an expert with certification by the International Association of Identifiers. According to members of the research group, this new evidence has been in the hands of the Dallas Police Department since May 12th. The Dallas Police Department passed it on to the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Malcolm Wallace, convicted in a 1951 murder and suspected in others, was reportedly killed in an automobile accident in 1971. He has been linked to the death of Texas Agriculture Department investigator Henry Marshall, said to be close to uncovering felonious behavior by Billy Saul Estes and Lyndon Johnson. The fact of Wallace's fingerprint in the so-called sniper's nest does not, of course, mean he pulled the trigger that day. Brown cited FBI fingerprint expert Sebastian Latona's testimony to the Warren Commission, in which Latona said that fingerprints can only be taken from a surface like cardboard within 24 hours of its origin. Furthermore, Wallace's print at the crime scene is hard evidence that corroborates the circumstantial evidence of Loy Factor's eyewitness account of Wallace's presence, said Texas researcher Richard Bartholomew. Loy Factor has claimed that he, Wallace, Lee Oswald, and a woman identified as Ruth Ann were present on the TSBD 6th floor as part of an assassination team. According to Bartholomew, the same question was raised by the Dallas police on May 12th. The FBI's own textbook on fingerprint science teaches the basic concept of fingerprint evidence used in criminal investigation, he said. Those who have an innocent reason to have handled the objects in question are eliminated from suspicion if their latent prints are present. Did Wallace have an innocent reason? No. Mark and I posted our progress, or lack thereof, on our website, much to the chagrin of the Texas group and everyone else who looked to the fingerprint evidence to be the final word in the JFK conspiracy. Nathan Darby, as he appeared in his interview in the Guilty Men documentary. I was very impressed with his confidence in his fingerprint match. It's a match, he insisted. There's no doubt about it. The finger that made the latent print and the finger that was on the fingerprint card is the same finger. If I was to die today, my final decision would be, it's a match.
He's one of the most experienced fingerprint experts in the United States, with 35 years service in the U.S. military and the City of Austin Police Department.
I didn't know where it came from, and a week or 10 days later, I called the party and that had brought it over and said, well, it's a match. The finger that made the ink print also made the latent, and we call that a match or identified. And there was no question about it. They matched.
3 years later, Nathan Darby readdressed the same evidence and reconfirmed his original findings.
I don't know why they couldn't say that the thing didn't match. It did match. There's no question about it. My experience, I've just had too much experience. I know what I'm talking about. I'm positive. There's no question about it. My dying declaration, if I was to drop dead right now, they match.
After watching Darby confidently defend his work, I decided to again try to contact him. This time I was successful. Several phone conversations with this wonderful gentleman convinced me that we must meet in person. Nathan invited Mark and I to Austin, and we accepted. We spent the better part of a day with Mr. Darby at his home in Austin. There he explained, as would be a school teacher, the various aspects of fingerprint analysis to us. He related step by step how he was presented with the prints, how he was never told to what case the fingerprints were related. He was paid as a professional for a professional comparison. Later, he gave us notes and details of a third analysis of the print evidence. Since I am not an expert, I have no way of confirming Darby's print results, but what I can say is that his explanation of the evidence, his confidence in his results, and his sterling character, along with my personal examination of the prints, lead me to the conclusion that the match is correct.
Some of these comments here.
The utility room door being locked.
Unless they knew its surroundings. They don't know what to, here's the thing, for all they know, there's going to be an attack dog in there. Keep in mind that there were dog cages right by that cut screen at the window.
Another reason for the intruder to just decide to go on somewhere else.
You don't know what kind of dog's in there is liable to run up and tear your face off.
Thanks for that, Rich. Appreciate you. We can handle it, though. We got it.
Well, I'm going to catch up on some of these comments here. Well, to you again, you're talking about 85J will never do anything for Darley. I hope you're wrong. I question it, but I hope you're wrong.
Now he's calling
85J is a 7.8.
And the last episode of this, he was calling it J85.
Point fingerprint. For those that know me well, know that I worked on the John Kennedy assassination for 20 some odd years.
You worked on it.
When I was very young, and I still work on the case, actually. I've worked with some of the biggest and the best investigators on the case. I know Robert Groden very well.
You know Robert Groden? See, I didn't know that. Robert Groden's been around for a long time.
Tom Rosley, many others.
Tom Rosley, you know these people.
But, we worked on a fingerprint. This is how I got
We worked on a fingerprint.
acclimated with fingerprints so well. In the Texas School Book Depository, they found a 13, almost 14-point match fingerprint. And that's a slam dunk. You can match that to somebody. And we were
let's see.
able to match that to a man by the name of Malcolm.
We were able to match that. But what I just showed is that one man, a world-renowned expert, was able to match that. It had nothing to do with Rich.
Wallace, which was actually kind of one of Lyndon Johnson's studs, so to speak. But anyway,
Let's see. Wow.